Our communication is so often ineffective, but we cannot afford to be ineffective because every touch point is a valuable opportunity to reach and nurture prospective customers. We can't afford to keep dropping the ball. Thank you so much for tuning into this lesson. This is called Words Matter: How to Write with Empathy for a Better Converting Customer Experience. So in the title of this talk, I assert that words matter, but let's step back for a second. Why do words matter for us, for product folks and marketers? What are we trying to accomplish with our content and copy? Well, I would argue that we have three main objectives. So at the base level, we are trying to inform and educate our audiences, because people can't engage with something that they don't understand. So your content, your website copy, emails, ads, in-app copy, the point of all of these words is to communicate information. But of course, in business, we are also trying to get people to do something. We are trying to persuade and convert. We want someone to take an action. Whether that action is simply coming back to our site or reading more of our content or actually buying something, our words need to persuade and they need to convert people. And then on a deeper level, words help us foster a connection with our audience. And this is really about word choice, which I'm not going to get into too much today, but it's really important to start thinking about. So here I'm really referring to the textual and visual cues that you're using that work together across all of your brand touchpoints to create a subconscious feeling for your visitors and your users, a feeling of, I like this, or this fits me. And that feeling is critical to creating connected customers. This is a quote from a famous playwright, George Bernard Shaw, that I'm a little bit obsessed with because it rings really true, to me at least. He writes, "The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place." And I think this is a very apt description of most of the words that you see out in the world. I mean, when was the last time you read ad copy that moved you to act, or got a marketing email that actually caused you to take an action? For me, at least, they are few and far between. Our communication is so often ineffective, but we cannot afford to be ineffective because every touch point is a valuable opportunity to reach and nurture prospective customers. We can't afford to keep dropping the ball. So let's stop. Let's stop dropping the ball. In this lesson, I'm going to be talking about how to communicate better by always keeping your user and their desired outcome in mind, by forcing yourself to walk in their shoes. And this isn't easy. I'm sure you all know this. Effective written communication is hard to do. To inform and connect with our target audiences, you have to keep that audience, that individual even, in mind at all times with every piece of written communication. This is tough, especially because many of us have multiple competing priorities. For many of you, content and copy may not even be your primary job, which means we're all executing and trying to ship content quickly. And it's easy to slide into habits that favor speed over effective communication. We get into these cycles where we're doing for the sake of doing, and we're not really thinking about whether or not our messages are landing. So this is Wider Funnel's lift model, and it's one of my favorite frameworks for writing more persuasive content and copy. Of course, there are tons of frameworks and different types of frameworks you can use to improve your written communication. I'm sure many of you have heard of IDA or ADA and PAS. I like Lift because it's not 100% copy focused. It actually encourages you to look at your words within the context of your user's full digital experience. So there are 6 factors within Lift. And in the context of this lesson, 6 factors for writing more persuasive copy. The first one and the central factor is your value proposition. This is the most important information you are trying to communicate in any message where you are ultimately trying to get someone to do something. Now, the other 5 factors are really promoters or detractors of a conversion action. So next is clarity. This one's pretty straightforward in theory, but we get this wrong so often. We really use a lot of extraneous information. We use more complicated words when we don't really need to. The basic idea behind clarity is, are you communicating your value proposition for easy comprehension, easy understanding? Relevance is the next promoter. And relevance is about meeting your audience's expectations, matching their needs and feelings, meeting them where they are in the moment that they're reading your message. Urgency is about introducing factors or matching factors that could cause someone to take an action right now. So does your audience have some internal urgency, or are you creating external incentives where it makes sense? For our detractors, distraction. This is a huge one. Anything that diverts your user's attention, your reader's attention away from your primary goal. And then anxiety. This is anything that might be creeping into our content and copy that is causing uncertainty for users about taking an action. So to make this a little bit more tangible, I wanted to break out a few questions you can ask yourself as you write. An amazing thing about employing the LIFT model is that in asking yourself these simple questions that are aligned to the factors I just reviewed, you are pulling yourself out of your internal focused mindset. And you're forcing yourself to think about your user's perspective and their whole journey. So some value proposition focused questions. Am I communicating the value proposition immediately? And how am I doing it? Am I highlighting value proposition points that are actually important to the reader, that aren't just things that I think are valuable? How do I know that these points are important to my reader? Is it my opinion, or can I back it up with some evidence? In terms of clarity and relevance, is my text easy to read? This is almost more of a design formatting question, but it's super important to consider, especially in digital. And then is it easy to comprehend? Oftentimes, if you're in the world of content and copy, you know, recommendation is to stay at about an 8th grade reading level. So super simple, short, clear, concise sentences. And then on the relevance side, where are my readers coming from? Does my copy acknowledge the source and also where they're going? And then is my content personalized for the reader and their context? Be careful with this one. You can get distracted by trying to over-personalize. Frankly, it's better to create a journey that is relevant to your biggest audience, and then personalize from there if you have the resources, if you can. In terms of finding distracting information, how many action items can the reader take from this piece of content or landing page or email or copy? Are there competing concepts or textual cues? Am I trying to say too many things at once that are distracting? And can I minimize extraneous information? Do I really need all of these words, all of these points? Again, going back to this idea that our content and copy is trying to persuade and convert, trying to get someone to do something. And then anxiety. So on the flip side, does the reader actually have all of the information that they need to take an action? And are you accidentally making the reader uncomfortable in some ways? If and when you can, it is always super useful to get a second, a third, a fourth, a fifth opinion wherever possible. Having fresh eyes review your content and copy, especially if they are also thinking about these questions, can be super helpful. So depending on how important, how high of a priority the content is that you're working on, bring in fresh eyes to review it. So we just walked through the model, gave you this big list of questions, but let's actually look at an example. So this is a version of an email that was written to promote one of Full Story's webinars. And I'm just going to read this aloud. Subject, webinar. Is your product solving the right problem for your users? Hi, George. As a product manager, you probably spend a lot of time thinking about what to build and how to build it. But the secret to success is ensuring you truly understand the why behind what you're building. In fact, there are 5 whys you need to ask to get to the core problem your product can solve, and our VP of Product, Justin Dilly, is hosting a webinar on December 2nd at 1 p.m. ET all about how to drive to the why. You can save your spot by registering right here. Can't make the live webinar? Go ahead and register and we'll send you a recording to view at your leisure. But let's put it through LIFT. So I've highlighted here a few pieces that really stuck out to me. So let's see our post-LIFT version. So, hi, George. How much energy do you spend thinking about what to build and how to build it? Wondering if that fix or feature is really what users want. So with these 2 questions, we're trying to stoke some pain so that we can present the solution as our strongest value proposition statement right away. And these two questions actually come from internal experience talking to FullStory's own product managers, as well as external research where we see that uncertainty around the product roadmap is a big concern for a lot of product teams. So then we hit them right away with a value proposition statement. It's aspirational. Now imagine being 100% confident in your product roadmap. 100% confidence. That's what you will get from this webinar. This isn't a pipe dream. By asking 5 whys, and here we put whys in quotation marks so that it's easy when you're scanning through to understand that this is not a typo, it is actually a concept, you can get to the core problem your product can and should solve. Simple. On December 2nd, join FullStory's VP of Product, Justin Dilley, for an exclusive webinar. And here we added the term exclusive to stoke some relevance a little bit, to make it feel like we aren't just mass marketing this webinar. We've actually handpicked you to attend this webinar because we believe it will be really relevant for you based on what we know about you. Super subtle word choice, but that's the idea behind what we're trying to do. So this exclusive webinar where he'll provide step-by-step instructions to help you drive to the why and get the confidence you crave. So what are they getting? Step-by-step instructions. This is tangible, again, value proposition. And then we've simplified our call to action, save your spot here, 4 words. Now, I'm sure this email is not perfect. I'm sure that there's lots more feedback and tweaking we could do to make this even stronger. There's testing we could do. But the overall idea is, again, to try to challenge whatever content and copy you're creating, put it through the LIFT model or whatever framework you prefer so that you can make sure that you are writing with your user in mind, with the things that are going to be valuable to them in mind, with ease for them in mind, with relevance for them in mind. So thank you so much for your attention today. I hope this was helpful, and go out into the world and start communicating more effectively. Thank you.